Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Get a circle. Just turn around.
Good afternoon, America. It's Whistleblower Wednesday again on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And we're diving right into what you just saw there, straight into it, this chilling act of Islamist terrorism that struck right here in New York City over the weekend. Two young men, 19-year-old Ibrahim Qayyumi and 18-year-old Amir Balat, both from Pennsylvania. And somebody wrote the word allegedly in my monologue. I'm not going to say allegedly. They did. They hurled homemade IEDs packed with TATB, the mother of Satan explosive, favored by global jihadis, at protesters outside of Gracie Mansion, the official residence of New York City's first Muslim Marxist mayor, Zohran Mamdani. These weren't random acts, people. The authorities, including the NYPD and FBI, have classified it as ISIS-inspired terrorism. The suspects reportedly shouted Allahu Akbar, Allah Akbar, and pledged allegiance to ISIS, unprovoked, not even under questioning. They watched its propaganda and even told investigators they aimed for something bigger than the Boston Marathon bombing. One device ignited but failed to fully detonate. Thank goodness. Thank God, actually. Nobody was seriously hurt. But the intent was mass casualty, folks. And yet, predictably, some in the media, matter of fact, most, even Mayor Mamdani himself tried to spin it. He called the original anti-Islamization protests rooted in white supremacy, while downplaying or ignoring the clear jihadist motive behind the attack. CNN's resident idiot, Abby Phillip, initially framed it as an attempted terror attack against the mayor himself 4 or 5 times over an hour or two long show, only to have to retract that after the facts came out. The targets were the protesters, not Mamdani, who wasn't even home. This is what happens when ideology blinds the free press to real threats. Radicals radicalized on our own soil, supposedly ISIS-inspired. Don't get hung up on that terminology. They were enabled by open borders and soft policies. And we're joined again by veteran TV news producer, Substack host at The Analyst, former diplomat and current anchor for Real American Sunrise Early Edition, the Real American Sunrise Early Edition, plus the new show, the News Hour Weekend Edition on 77 Talk Radio, WABC out of New York City. Jake Novak. Jake, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. This is only an hour-long show, but there's a lot to talk about with this one incident that only took a few minutes. You know, I went through a lot of it. But let's just start with, let's be clear. These are Islamist jihadi attackers, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not even a question. And it shows a lot of things. I mean, you pointed it out. You know, the media's political ideology right now has decided that anyone who opposes President Trump, anyone who happens to oppose white Americans and Republican Americans, they're going to support. And consequently, anyone who supports or has the support of Trump or the Trump supporters or white
Mm-hmm.
American Republicans, they're going to be against. It's become so incredibly a joke that the old thing your parents used to tell you, well, if everyone jumps off the Empire State Building, will you do it too? And the answer is, if they hate Trump, yeah, they'll jump off the Empire State Building. And we've reached this extreme point. But all joking aside, the power of persuasion that these terrorists and other people who hate America have, knowing that a significant percentage of the American population and the news media will support them no matter what crazy thing they want to do, is a very serious thing. I mean, I've never seen any group have that much power over the news media in such a way, not even during the early days of the after 9/11 when everyone was really feeling pressure to be super patriotic. That didn't last.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on now for 10 years.
What do you think the root of that power is, Jake? I mean, I'm really serious about it. The reason I am doing this show today is because of this issue.
Well, because the root of it is hatred. Hatred is a huge motivator in politics, and for the reason why people watch the news. I learned this early in the early days of even when I was doing local news, Rob, and I realized that you can't just do the weather report, Rob, when you're doing local news. You need to do it as a life and death. You're going to slip and fall, Grandma, if you don't watch this news report. And there's loathing and hatred. So fear and hatred play a big role in it. It's a big motivator in politics. Anyone who says otherwise is being very, very naive. And so it has to do with using the hatred for their own means. And hatred can really make you stupid. You do stupid things. People always talk about, maybe lust and drug addiction make you do stupid things. Hate does make you do stupid things too, sometimes worse than those other two. And I see it all the time. For example, there's not one environmentalist I've met in years, one feminist I've met in years who really actually cares about women or the environment. They just hate white men and the oil companies. It's really what it is. And anyone who just says otherwise is really being naive and foolish. Every once in a while, in the past, when I did meet a real environmentalist, they usually were like, I'm going to live a clean life. I'm not here to kill it. And they were fantastic people, even though I wouldn't live their life the way they did. And every once in a while, you meet a true feminist who's like, hey, we got these women and girls who are being treated horribly in these certain countries. Let's just help them. And they don't care, who wins or who loses politically. But they're few and far between in America right now. And that's what we're seeing with this. It's hatred. It's hatred, Rob.
Yeah, it is. A name popped into my mind when you said that about the real environmentalist, Ed Begley. I can't remember what show he was on. He was a TV guy.
Ed Begley Jr.
That's the way he even did a little documentary series about his life and everything. That's kind of the way what you get from him.
It's nutty. It's funny you mentioned him. I used to put him on my show on Fox, and we would ask him, how did you get here, Ed? And he'd be like, I walked or I rode my bicycle. And we say, hey, listen, Ed, we got to give you credit. I wouldn't want to live in a compost heap like you do, but at least you walk the walk. And I've never heard him. I'm sure he did once or twice. Maybe the viewers might remember. But for the most part, he's not out there giving nasty grams to the Republican Party. He's just living his life.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't real clear in that video, but there's another video of the bomber with the little man bun in the top of his cranium jumping over a counter protester, leftist kind of guy named Walter Masterson. And I'm going to name the name because he is what is known in the commie world as a useful idiot.
Yeah.
He actually was yelling, "All are welcome here," as the Islamist jihadi was throwing a bomb designed to kill many, many people. I mean, we'll talk about the device in the last segment of the show using my EOD expertise. And we'll talk about how we know how deadly those are. And this guy's throwing it over his head. And then even afterwards, Jake, there's video, and I'm not going to show his videos, but there was a video afterwards that say, and I really mean it. These people are welcome here, after the guy tried to kill him. I'm not so sure this guy's smart enough to figure out that he was a target of that bomb.
Yeah. This is, you can't have one, though, without the other. If Americans would just band together with common sense and say, hey, look, if someone's going to accuse us of being racist or xenophobic while we go after people who want to kill us, too bad, we're not going to worry about that. But it's people who want to push back on that, who would absolutely rather have us killed or maimed, or have a certain percentage of people killed or maimed, than to somehow be accused of being racist. I mean, the left, being accused of being racist or xenophobic is the worst thing in the world. It's better to be a murderer. It's better to be a child predator. I'm not kidding. I mean, this is not actually an exaggeration on my part. That's the worst thing. That's the lowest level on their totem pole. And they're on a pretty low level on my totem pole also. But I'm sorry, murderers get lower, and so do child predators. I'm sorry. That's the way it's. And they literally have confused that as well. And you can't have one without the other. We would have had much stronger borders under both types of administrations for a lot longer if it weren't for this undercurrent and now very outward movement to just say any kind of enforcement of immigration or any kind of law enforcement on anyone who isn't white is racist and bad. That's really the message they're trying to push right now for a long time.
Yeah. And it makes no sense whatsoever. Matter of fact, it's deadly. It's really deadly for themselves and for the rest of us too, because they're the ones that allow these people to operate here.
Yeah, and they know that. I mean, there's one thing that criminals know. They know when the door is unlocked. I mean, they just do. They have a sense for it. They know when they know where they're welcome. They know where there won't be enforcement. Again, as I always say, when it comes to bigotry or whether it's anti-Semitism or Islamist stuff, nothing that happens in the world makes them that way. Their hatred has got other roots in it. But what does happen in the world, which plays a big role in all this, is there are things that happen in the world that signal to them that this might be a time or a place or a group of people where I can get away with it, where I will get some support. And, that's what triggers this. They didn't suddenly just wake up that morning and decide they hated America and wanted to kill for Islam. They've always wanted to do that, or for a long time they wanted to do that. But they realized here's a place where the mayor will probably call out these protesters against the Islamification and very loud prayer services. We go there, we do this, and it's likely that the mayor will not denounce us. And sure enough, he's refusing to denounce them personally, and he never will. He never will.
Yeah, we'll show a little clip of him about white supremacy. It's unbelievable. I mean, it just boggles my mind at the beginning of the next segment. So on the well, let me continue with Masterson here. There's another layer to him. He was a January 6th Antifa poser, is what the reported layer of him is, which we've all reported almost since a week after it happened that there was evidence, and have shown it, of Antifa members dressing as Trump supporters in the January 6th crowd, agitating and damaging things, those kind of things. And this guy, his next layer down below is, we love everybody and we don't care if they're Islamist bomb throwers, is that he's an Antifa guy, which is terrorism. He's a terrorist.
Yeah, the people who say they love everyone are the ones you really have to watch out for. It's as simple as that. But there have been, this has been something that's been going on, Rob, since Trump started to take the lead in the presidential election in 2016. They decided, the people who hated Trump decided that if he didn't actually have white supremacists within his movement, then they would commit acts of bigotry and vandalism and violence and try to frame the Trump supporters for it. Almost all of them were immediately rooted out as being false flag type things. But of course, the most ridiculous of them all was the Jussie Smollett one, which was, of course, the most ridiculous of them all for a lot of reasons. But, I made a joke during 2020 that the Democratic nominee for president should have been Jussie Smollett. He represented everything that party was all about. Failed acting, a marginal person who they thought was great because he was a gay black man, and someone who was willing to stage a hate crime and make it pretend as if it were the Trump supporters who did it. He's been the Democratic Party for years.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, some good news that came out of that incident was there's a great picture of a 2-star New York Police Department chief. I'm not sure exactly. It's probably a division chief or the next level up. But Aaron Edwards is his name. Big, giant guy, black guy, but he's jumping over the fence to stop the bomber. So outright defying death. I mean, he's jumping in the face of death to block the way away from the protesters on both sides. Really, that's amazing. That when I saw that picture, I was like, man, if this guy doesn't A, get a medal, but B, the media doesn't jump on this to praise the NYPD, then something's seriously wrong. And I've seen a little bit of reporting on the right of center side, but not much on the left side, unfortunately.
Yeah, they absolutely won't. They absolutely won't.
Yeah.
He will not get on CNN. He will not get on ABC News. I can
Mhm.
tell you that right now. And by the way, what a terrible business decision. I've talked to you about this before. If you have a certain political agenda, that's one thing, but you're supposed to be still in a business. These
Yeah.
political agenda decisions they're making are killing their business. People would click on that story if it were on your website. People would
Yeah.
tune in to the exclusive interview with Dana Bash or whoever they want to get out to interview that guy. It would make money. It would get you eyeballs. And it's so frustrating to me when I see the deliberate undermining of a business model. And the reason why is because the corporate owners of these media outlets are using their media outlets to as a lobbyist group for the left in general. Even though the Trump administration is in control right now, they're treading water with this until a new administration comes in. It's
Yeah.
a way of lobbying the left in Washington, the swamp in Washington, the bureaucrats, and telling them we'll always be friendly to you, so be friendly to us and our other businesses that actually matter to us financially.
It's ridiculous. So we got to take a break, Jake. When we come back, we'll show the Mandami speech right after the incident. You are not going to believe this. It's unbelievable. I'll be right back on Worldview Tube.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you.
Of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all. But a few did not. Two men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism. There is video of these two individuals throwing two devices towards the protest. The police department has determined that these were improvised explosive devices made to injure, maim, or worse. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of NYPD officers at the scene, both men were immediately taken into custody, and the devices they brought taken off of our streets. I want to commend the officers who were on site.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and you can't get any worse than what you just heard, people. The Muslim Marxist mayor of New York City blames the protesters that don't think it's right to Islamicize New York City or anywhere else in America for the terrorist attack committed upon them by jihadi terrorists. You notice that he never uses the word jihadi. My guest today is Jake Novak. And Jake, he never uses the word Islamist. He never uses the word jihad. He never uses even the word ISIS, which I don't necessarily agree with that characterization, but it's part of the political messaging that these terrorists are trained to use here in America because it works. He never even shows any disgust for religious zealots representing tyrants around the world in this Islamist form of government for trying to kill Americans. And it would have killed a lot of Americans if those two devices had gone off.
Maybe your viewers remember the dance that we went through with Barack Obama throughout his entire presidency. He would never use the term Islamic terror. And it started to get more and more of a drumbeat within the right-wing news media, and then maybe a little bit of the more right-of-center news media. And finally, in his last year in office, and I can't remember whether this was after President Trump had already won the election and President Obama was in that lame duck period, or whether it was just during that last year in office. But I remember during one of his news conferences, he looked very angrily at the news media, and he just spat out the words, all right, you want me to say it, I'll say it. Islamic terrorism. And, you know, it's amazing. He wouldn't say it. This is that back then and today remains the biggest threat to the world. It has been the biggest threat to the world, I believe, for the last 50 years, in my opinion, certainly since the end of the Soviet Union. So let's say maybe the last 30 years, it certainly has been. And this guy wouldn't say the phrase. I'll be surprised if Mayor Mamdani ever uses the term Islamic terror or jihadism, as you said. And that's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous. I mean, from the point of view of Muslims, I mean, there's a lot of Muslims who are just so sick and tired of all of this. And they know that it's people like Mamdani who absolutely enable the worst elements within that community. And for those of you who listened to that soundbite, I thought, like, well, actually, that wasn't that bad. Remember, the timing is everything. He spent the entire first part of that address talking about the protesters and how bad they were. That was the first comment that he made, which, again, as you said, Colonel, made it seem like, well, you know, I mean, that's like saying, well, there was this girl who was walking down the street in a really short skirt and high heels, and then two people came to our city to do things to her. No, that's not how you talk about it. That is victim blaming. It's outrageous. The first thing you say is, we will not ever tolerate jihadists coming to the city from any place, or whether they're from the city or not. Jihadist terror trying to come into New York City, nice try. And not even mention who their target was. What does that matter? What does that matter?
Well, you know, I haven't said his name, but I'll say it now. Jake Lang is the individual who's given credit for organizing that protest. And Jake Lang is a J6er, but he's a provocateur. And many of the real J6 prisoners that were in the gulag with him in D.C., most of them, as a matter of fact, from the ones I've been able to talk to face-to-face, will honestly tell you that they think that he works for the federal government. And I don't support his efforts because, you know, he showed up to go after the dad of a guy in Texas, down there in Austin, I think it was, doing a big protest, and he said some really nasty things out to the dad and everything, and they were racist phrases, those kind of things. So I don't support this guy. I support most of the other J6ers, but this guy and his crowd, not one bit. But that only engaged Mamdani's little white supremacy crap, you know. So whether I support this guy or not, let's just be clear. That is no excuse for this response to not be aggressive against Islamic jihadism, because that is what is happening. And we haven't even used the term sleeper cells yet. This is why I don't like the ISIS phrasing. Look, it's a good talking point. We like using that because everybody recognizes it here. We know they're the enemy. We've spent a lot of resources and lives killing ISIS. But the Iranians have sleeper agents inside this country, amongst others, Hamas, Hezbollah, probably some on the Sunni side too. Al-Qaeda is here. We know those types of folks are here. Let's just stick to what it is. This is Islamic jihadism, and these two guys were probably part of some type of sleeper cell operation. Not necessarily that they were sleepers themselves, they were just the bomb throwers, the executors of the operation. And we'll talk a lot more about what I think about that in the last segment when we talk about the devices and how they're made and those kind of things. But we shouldn't use Jake Lang being present as an excuse to ignore the reality, should we?
No, I mean, this is just like the Charlie Hebdo cartoon. As someone growing up in a religious tradition, I don't want to see cartoons of prophets from the Bible in a gay kiss together with someone either. But this was this lame excuse for a massive, deadly protest, which, by the way, only killed Muslims. They just, in the crazy protests that ensued in France more than 10 years ago when the whole Charlie Hebdo thing happened. Of course, that was not acceptable. It was just ridiculous that a cartoon in a newspaper literally led to the deaths of a number of people. And by the way, eventually led to the death of Charlie Hebdo. It doesn't exist anymore. France completely surrenders to this, as they do to everything else. But we don't want to become like France, where we decide that some guy who's looking for his own self-aggrandizement starts these kinds of things, and suddenly we're making excuses for people who want to kill people over something. Again, I mean, if we have to reiterate this again, the only time it's justified for you to kill is when someone is coming at you with a deadly force. That's it. End of story. Not, oh, he insulted me, or, I mean, we see this all the time in urban areas in the United States where people shoot each other because someone, got their sneakers dirty. I mean, we don't want that here in the United States. There's no excuse for that. But it's a good thing the feds have this case. I mean, Bill O'Reilly was saying the other day, these guys are never going to get out of prison for the rest of their lives, and that's good. That should be the story that everyone talks about for a long time. But this is just crazy. People are really going to work on this and try to say, well, I don't like what they did, but that Jake Lang's a bad guy. I mean, honestly, what kind of low-level morality do you want to have where someone who walks around with a pig on a skewer ends up leading people to want to blow up a shrapnel bomb that could have killed and maimed 50 people?
And, it's the same kind of thing, same kind of tactic they tried to use with Malcolm X versus Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King. Same kind of thing. Well, that X guy, he's a bad dude, and in later times, Jesse Jackson and Farrakhan. It's the same kind of thing. People should recognize this for what it is. It's a tactic and a strategy to divide us, and kill us, too. The other thing that really bugs me about this, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, the whole Islam thing is, look, I started interacting with Muslims when I was 9 years old in North Africa and Morocco. So I know what it looks like to see a radical jihadist kind of approach, and then a mainstream person and their family that doesn't want to go out and kill anybody. But I got to be honest, though, Jake, in the macro, Lang's right. Andy Ogles is being hit for saying Islam doesn't really belong in America. He's a congressman, I think, from Tennessee. He's being attacked for that right now. But I agree with Ogles. I don't think Islam is compatible with life in the United States of America or the American culture. I mean, these kids, we'll talk about them some more, I'm sure. They're sons of refugees that we let in, I think, from Afghanistan and another war area in the Middle East. And now they're radicalized. So they're considered American citizens. So much for, the birthright citizenship stuff, making you somebody that's going to assimilate into America. But the Muslim versus Islam jihadism thing, it really troubles me, because in the macro, the majority of these folks either won't take action against the people they see as radicals and speak up against them, or the radicals are just the majority.
Yeah, it's really about the power that they wield. The genocidal outlook within Islam for everyone who isn't Muslim is a relatively new thing, but it took off like wildfire. Some people think like, oh, it took off like wildfire during the Iranian revolution. No, it took off like wildfire in the years before World War II, where the Islamists saw what the Nazis were doing. saw what the kind of rhetoric they were promoting and realized this was an opportunity for them to promote the same ideology. The reason why these Islamist groups sound so much like Nazis is because they are Nazis. They were literally like an auxiliary of the Nazis. There was a Islamist division of the SS. I don't think it had a lot of people in it, but still, they had their little group. The leader of the Palestinian terrorists and the Palestinian movement, the Grand Mufti, was a guest of Adolf Hitler throughout World War II. And he did a radio show in Arabic just outside Berlin every day, 7 days a week. So this is not new, but it's new as far as the 1400-year history of Islam. But it's not new to us in our world. It's been going on for a long time. It predates Iran. It predates all this other kind of stuff. It predates Islamic Iran. And it very much is Nazi-inspired. And it's really there's no neo-Nazi group in the United States. There's no skinhead group that has anywhere near the success of the Islamic wing of Nazism, which still lives and thrives today. It needs to be thrown off. And you're right. They just haven't done a good enough job in the Muslim world throwing it off. There's one or two countries where where we see good stuff, like Indonesia, but not enough. And Indonesia is a good one to have because it's so populated. But we need to see more of a commitment from more Muslim leaders against this Nazification of their own religion. And it's been ridiculously wanting for 90 years.
Yeah, at least 90 years. I think the Muslim Brotherhood started in the early 1900s, and it just kept rolling and growing ever since then. All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, the terrorists themselves. Who are they? Where do they come from? What's going on with the investigation? I'll be right back with Jake Novak.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Qayyumi said in recorded post-arrest statements that he had watched ISIS propaganda on his phone and that his actions that day were partly inspired by ISIS. The complaint also details statements made by Amir Balat after his arrest. En route to the NYPD precinct, Balat made spontaneous statements without being questioned by NYPD officers that were captured on body-worn camera footage. He said, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the Prophet. We take action, as well as, if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And later, after waiving his rights, he requested paper and wrote a message declaring in part, "I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State. Die in your rage, you kuffar." Now, "die in your rage" is a commonly known ISIS slogan, and kuffar is an Arabic term that refers to non-believers.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about this crazy response, especially from the media and the Muslims running the government in New York City, that guy, and all the other kind of nutty stuff surrounding this clearly jihadist, Islamic, terrorist, improvised explosive device attack on a crowd of Americans protesting against each other. We're really lucky. My guest today is Jake Novak, who is on WABC Radio right there in New York City with his new program every Sunday or every weekend. And Jake, it's not just New York, but this is getting the focus because of this crazy. It's just crazy. It drives me, as somebody that's a former EOD bomb tech. It's been fighting terrorism from the Irish Republican Army on, the Bader Meinhof gang, the Red Army faction, the IRA, these guys. I've been doing it since I was 17. It drives me nuts to see the softness used, and I was really pleased to hear that very frank discussion. And I noticed that prosecutor was wearing a Star of David. Do you think that's the reason why she was being so clear?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that was actually that was Jessica Tisch, who's the police commissioner in New York, and she does come from the Tisch family. And I have mixed feelings about her. She has now served 3 anti-cop mayors in a row: Bill de Blasio, Eric Adams, who, yes, was a police captain, but was very much an enemy of the police department his entire time in the NYPD. He was there to be an insider agitator. And now Mamdani. She has enabled them in many ways. So as much as I think she's not really doing a terrible job, she's also enabled these. I mean, it would be really a statement if she would step away at some point real soon and say, these people are anti-cop and we have to stop. But that aside, look, this is a bad narrative. The idea that, they went online and they read something about ISIS and that's what got them convinced to do something. There's obviously has to be a lot more. I know we all think our kids are believing everything they see online, but they have to have some communal support as well, some communal pushes towards this type of behavior, and on down the line. One thing you may not know about these two, they're very wealthy. Their homes were raided a few days after this, or a day after this. They live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is another like playground country house type area. Their families, I'm going to guess, probably had apartments in Manhattan as well, but I don't know that for sure, so I'm going to hold off on that. But these were multi-million-dollar homes in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. More proof, just like Osama bin Laden, just like I believe the underwear bomber was also from a multi-million-dollar, wealthy family in Africa. Yeah. And being a multi-millionaire in Africa is like being a billionaire here in the United States. I mean, that's very wealthy people. Yeah. You know me, Colonel. One of my biggest pet peeves is this belief that we're taught since childhood that poverty leads to crime. It's just not true. A rich person is just as likely to rob you and to commit a crime against you as a poor person. Economic desperation doesn't lead to crime. It leads to other things, but it doesn't lead to crime. Crime causes poverty. These people who have just committed this act, just to prove my point, there's not going to be a lot of street vendors who are going to be able to do their job around Gracie Mansion for probably ever now. So that's a loss of a territory for them. That's one example. Yeah. Obviously, some people don't want to move out of the city, but you get my point. So this is really important for us to stop falling for this nonsense, because the answer people are going to say, like, well, if ISIS is recruiting people online, all we need to do is get Elon Musk or someone to block those websites and everything will be hunky dory. That's not going to fix it.
No, it's not. Propaganda may be like pouring gasoline on a fire, but that's not the core. The core of this is this ideology. And let's talk about these two guys. They're 19 and 20-ish, so late teens, early 20s. Typical males. Males are typically the recruits to do the dirty work of setting the bomb and blowing it up, or shooting the people, actually shooting the people, and those kind of things. But they're not poor. You just pointed out. Usually, these kind of guys that get recruited for like suicide bombers and those kind of things in the Middle East, their families are in poverty. Their parents are promised financial reward. So they recruit them that way. Well, these parents already live in $2 million houses, as you pointed out, and it wouldn't surprise me if they have apartments in Manhattan. So America's been really good to them. So it can't just be the propaganda online. I mean, I read their propaganda all the time, and I'm not radicalized to be a jihadi. I'm radicalized against having Islamists in my country.
Yeah, it's
because I'm an American and they're Americans.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would differentiate between Islam not being the idea that Islam isn't compatible with the United States, which I think with our country, I would more say it's the internal culture of the Muslim community in the United States for the most part, and not necessarily the religion. Although the religion has a huge problem with pluralism. One of the greatest things that happened to mankind is 500, 600 years ago, Christianity decided it didn't need to behead the people who weren't Christians anymore or weren't
Yeah.
loyal to their form of the church. But that was 500 years ago. If you remember, Barack Obama, every time people forced him into admitting that Islam has this problem about not having pluralism, he talked about the Crusades like they were yesterday. He was right to say that there was a time in Christianity when that was true, but that was 500 years ago. I mean, come on, can you get a break for five? I mean, I want my insurance company to give me a break for 3 years without a speeding ticket. What can we give Christians for 500 years without a crusade? I mean, come on, man, give me a break. So, I mean, I'm only half joking. But the problem is, I actually think it's more likely that we're going to see this kind of stuff from wealthier Muslims, from more successful Muslims. This Mahmoud Khalil, who is this perpetual student, welcomed with open arms to Columbia University. We have no idea what his academic credentials were, probably nothing. Comes from a relatively wealthy family. These people come from wealthy families. Barack Obama didn't always live a wealthy family life, but he lived a pretty good life. I mean, take a look at his high school graduation picture. He had a pretty nice life. And this has been a theory I've had for a long time, Colonel, that wealthier Muslims who come to this country and are successful, very often it makes them even more guilty and even more hateful because it forces them to realize, or something they're trying not to realize, but it pushes them in the direction of having to recognize that their hatred for Americans, their hatreds for the Kafar are so not justified. We've treated them better than their own people. Listen to Bridget Gabriel's story, the Lebanese Christian woman, about how Arabs treated her and her family much worse than the kind Israelis back during the Civil War in the 70s. So I think this makes them even more volatile because the realization that your own people have failed, are murderous, to you, forget about other people, that's a hard one to swallow. Hard one.
It is. It is. Well, we got a question in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that. Go ahead, Shel.
We have Deb, sir. Thank you, Shel, and thank you, Rob and Jake. I have a question for Rob and Jake. So when Mandami when he had his little interview or his whatever he did, his speech, he said about hatred in our state. That's fine, except for one problem. Why was it okay for him to say that hate has no place, but yet it was okay to have the Palestinians protesting against the Israelis in New York City?
A good question.
That's my question.
Great question, Jake.
Yeah. And why did he visit a mosque not that long ago where they are loyal to Iran, where the leaders of that mosque have called for the death of Americans? Why did he host at his home for an iftar dinner? Every night they break the fast for Ramadan and they have a special dinner. Why did he have Mahmoud Khalil and some other terrorist sympathizers there? Why is he married to a woman who liked hundreds and hundreds of videos of October 7th atrocities on her social media account? This wasn't like, oh, I believe that the Gazans are being brutalized. This was someone who was liking the videos of the brutalization. The brutal stuff. This is a sick person, and never took them down. You're absolutely right. It's a good question. It's ridiculous. These are hate groups. These are groups that absolutely are banking on it. And he is absolutely in bed with them. And they use blood libels like calling the Israeli war with the Hamas a genocide. It's not a genocide. Calling it that is really quite a disgrace, especially for someone in my family. I've had my family members were killed by an actual genocide. So it really bothers me. And calls it apartheid. It's also not apartheid. These people are really dangerous. They're really dangerous. And you're right. They need to be called out for their own hatred. But here we are in America. This is just what we were talking about at the beginning of the program. You have a group of people in America who, as long as it angers the people they don't like, they will say 2 + 2 is 5. They will cut off their own heads. They will allow their own children to be in danger. They will, literally, these are people who say, I will allow a 35-year-old sex offender male to be in a locker room with my daughter because it angers Trump. These people these people need serious help. And if the psychiatric community weren't almost completely under the same spell, I have yet to meet more than 1 or 2 psychiatrists in this country who also don't have Trump derangement syndrome. But if that weren't the case, I would send all these people to psychiatrists. But most of them are also under the influence of this absolute fever pitch hatred of this country that's gone out of control in the last 11 years.
That reminds me, I wonder if TDS was ever put into the DSM as an actual mental disorder. It should be. It really should be. We got to take our last break. When we come back, we'll talk about what's going on, because it's not just New York City where this operation was planned and resourced and perpetrated from. We'll be right back with Jake Novak.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now. And we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
Ibrahim Qayyumi and Emir Balat brought 2 homemade explosives to an anti-Muslim protest on Saturday. Thankfully, neither detonated, but as you mentioned, more homemade bombs have been found and safely removed from a Pennsylvania storage unit connected to the case. Both suspects are being held without bail after their first appearances in court yesterday on charges that include attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization and using a weapon of mass destruction. According to a criminal complaint, both men expressed support for ISIS, and one talked about watching ISIS videos.
Younger and younger individuals who are radicalizing and mobilizing to violence. And this is taking place against the backdrop of social media, the dynamics of online culture. It's not limited to ISIS, it's across the ideological spectrum.
Fox News Digital captured these photos of the suspects' homes, both located in Philadelphia suburbs, roughly 15 minutes apart. The suspects are U.S. citizens, but their parents are naturalized U.S. citizens from the Middle East. An attorney for one of the suspects tried to suggest yesterday that the 2 co-defendants were strangers to each other. Both men are due back in court early next month. Martha.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about the incident with the 2 improvised explosive devices outside of Gracie Mansion in New York City, and the response to it with Jake Novak, who's the host of the Weekend News Show now on WABC Radio 77 out of New York. And Jake, a couple things. The primary explosives in these devices is a compound called TATP. Y'all can look up the chemical name for that if you want to. I'm not going to rattle it out here, but I'm very familiar with it, know it well, because that is the preferred primary explosives for jihadist terrorists around the world. It was used you may recall the backpack bomb in England and the UK at the music concert. For the little girls. I can't remember who the star was. Was it Taylor Swift?
Ariana Grande.
Ariana Grande. Yeah, Ariana Grande. It killed 22 people and wounded a sizable number of people with a very similar sized IED. So the device itself fits the same pattern of worldwide jihadist terrorist bomb makers. And here's the other thing, and the main reason I played that clip is it talked about the storage facility in Pennsylvania that was discovered, and they reported there were devices found there, but later reporting shows that it was the chemical compound of the explosive residue that was found there, which tells me that's probably the operations location for building the devices, But this whole package, the way it's been put together, using these 2 guys, that even the storyline about, well, they've never really known each other, and ISIS, all tells me that this is part of a larger operation, that these 2 were recruited, There's a bomb maker involved. Look, folks, the bomb makers rarely ever plant their own bombs because they're a limited resource. It's a technical skill that's hard to do without blowing yourself up. So the bomb maker has not been caught. Whoever made the bomb has not been caught. Only the two jihadis that were assigned to perpetrate the act of violence, which it probably would have killed them too. Those fuses were very short, from what I could tell. Had they been around, a lot of people would have died had those devices gone off. So this whole story, the way it's building out from a factual perspective, to me tells me it's probably involved some kind of sleeper agent that's recruited them. Then you've got a bomb maker involved, so they've got to get the resource put together, teach them how to use it, and then send them on their way to the target. Your thoughts?
And I think that in this case, they might have been told they had to pay for some of those materials, which is why they were wealthy people who were involved in this. I think that there is some kind of clearinghouse cell that is finding people and trying to get them to work with them. So yes, they may initially be attracted to it via something online or something like that, but then they have to be contacted by someone who can give them more. This is the same story with Thomas Crooks, who shot President Trump in the ear, who had a number of materials and types of who really doesn't make any sense that he would have access to. I think he had some kind of special satellite phone, right? Something like that that he could not have gotten on his own. So what I think there is a cell in this country that has weapons, bombs, other tactical devices that they're willing to give out to those who they can sort of get a recruit. But I tell you something, I actually think in this case they might have made them even pay for it, which is whatever, great. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So that is, which by the way is a great way to show that they're for real, and not undercover agents. So that's I think what's going on here. Absolutely, there is some kind of sleeper cell clearing. I mean, I want to call it like a central resource. Let's put it that way, where these things can be gotten. It's probably hard to penetrate it because they want to make sure you're not an undercover agent. But when you're that young, 18 and whatever it was, 19 or 17, I mean, they probably had a good idea that they weren't sleeper agents. Although I will say this, if the FBI is listening, you know what they do in a lot of towns where a young person is found trying to get alcohol at a bar when he's underage? They bring the kid in and they say, okay, this isn't looking good for you, but, one of the ways that you can reduce your sentence, or we won't tell your parents or whatever, we'll have to tell your parents, but we're not going to get you in no trouble, is we want you to go into that other bar and try to get a drink. And if they serve it, I mean, I actually know someone who was a bartender. It was a roommate of mine who I didn't like, but he got nailed that way because the kid had been caught. In other words, this might be a good way for the FBI to work with and try to infiltrate these groups because they won't be expecting it. But anyway, that's probably what's going on. It makes no sense that Thomas Crooks and these two guys there who probably don't know how to, what a carburetor is, would know how to build a bomb like that. No way.
Yeah, same thing with the Army reservist guy in New Orleans, Ryan Ruth, the way he built his sniper position. I mean, all of that. I mean, all of these things, they may not be tied to the same network or the same spot in the network, but there is a network obviously at work inside the country that does this kind of stuff. To me, we got a question in the audience. Let's take that before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Shel.
We have sunlight, sir.
Hey, thanks a lot, Shel. And hey, Rob, how you doing, Jake? Just real quick, I mean, you hit right on what I wanted to ask you about, which is that, you look at Elias Rodriguez, who killed the two young people that were leaving the Jewish Museum in D.C. You got Luigi Mangione, who targeted the United Healthcare CEO on the streets of New York and gunned him down. All of these individuals that we're talking about are in that age group, 18 to 28. And so the thing is, we never hear about that.
Do we have a question for the Colonel, Sunlight?
Yeah, we don't hear about the digital footprint. So, what are your thoughts on, it may be similar techniques, but the digital footprint, I think, is important. We need to get to the bottom of that. What rooms are they in? Who are they listening to? So on and so forth. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that they're initially contacted probably on whatever existing cell phones or websites they use or emails or whatever it is, and then they're probably given burner phones. And everything else is done off the books that way. One of the reasons why we're not hearing more about the organizations that clearly are acting as a resource is not just the political stuff, and certainly under Biden, they weren't going to tell us everything about Thomas Crooks and the other places. However, I think another thing going on is it's probably a little bit of an embarrassment, even for the good men and women at the FBI, however many there are, that they haven't been able to infiltrate this yet. There is clearly a clearinghouse resource sleeper cell in this country, and I don't think they've got a lot of traction in infiltrating it. And I think they're embarrassed, and I understand that. But at some point, they need to get over the embarrassment and call the public and say, we need help. We need help finding this group. And they need to get really serious about going undercover. I think undercover work has turned into just confidential informant work, and that's not good enough. That's, to me, in police work and also in the war on terror. We need to do things like they used to do in the 70s when police officers would dress up like Hasidic Jews and walk through bad neighborhoods and draw out the criminals. We need to have much more real undercover work, not just the hopes of recruiting a confidential informant. That's not enough. And that would be just my personal critique of the way we're trying to infiltrate this.
Serpico.
Yeah.
Name pops into my brain. One of the issues that is going on, and I think I agree with you, Jake, in everything you said there. But just to add to it, though, Sunlight, is that they haven't been able to penetrate the networks. So if they give too much information about the network itself, they'll give away what they do know is the danger, the risk in that. But my complaint with the leadership of these organizations, the leaders that step out in front and everything, is they don't give any information at all, and it looks like a cover-up to the average person. And there's been so much hidden from the average citizen that just makes it even more of a problem, because the next thing you know, you'll have citizens going out there, well, you can't trust the government because of X, Y, and Z, and well-founded in some cases, but in this stuff, there's no reason to not put some things out that are known, that could be known publicly, like pictures of the device, how it operated. Back when the IRA was active in London, in the UK, I was in an EOD group over there, a young guy over there. The British authorities were very good about putting the information out that they could put out, and the public was able to help. I don't see that anymore. When I was a commander of a base and I had 600 and something law enforcement guys working for me, that's the kind of thing that I wanted to do, was put information out to the public so they could help. I just don't see that anymore. That's a big concern for me.
Yeah, I just think that the ball is being dropped because they're afraid of a lot of things. This was one of the big failures of George W. Bush's response domestically to 9/11 and during the war on terror. He was desperately worried that he would somehow weaken the economy by telling people to be more careful, maybe thinking about, to immediately start thinking about how we were going to have a little bit less oil consumption and stuff like that. He was deathly afraid of it, so much so that he just he was really happy that the country wasn't worried about this every day. And that's led to another problem that I've talked to you about a number of times, Colonel, which was that at the height of the Gulf War, I'm ashamed of the fact that you could walk from one end of the biggest city in America to the next and not even know that hundreds of thousands of our young men and women were at war. That's going too far. No, we don't want to be living in fear and in mourning all the time, but not to even recognize what we're dealing with and what some of our fellow Americans are dealing with and sacrificing for us is a huge disconnect, which is why I'm in favor of a Bastille Day type military parade in America, just so we can see this every year, if not more. I'm in favor of all that because we have a disconnect between the civilian who doesn't know what the heck's going on and the armed services people who don't want a lot of personal attention brought onto them, but don't understand that it's necessary sometimes.
I would rather see an American-style parade like that, a ticker tape parade, not a parade where you're showing off armor and jets and artillery pieces. Yeah. Although that's cool, I like that. I'm a military guy, but that's not the American way traditionally.
Personnel, just the personnel.
And a ticker tape parade. So the citizens can show their appreciation.
I don't want to see SS-20s rolling down the street, those big missiles and stuff. I don't want to see that, but I do want to see the personnel. I like to see the personnel in convertibles waving to the crowd. Yeah,
and I think the parade last summer, was done very well, even though it had some equipment in it. It was done from a historical perspective, and I think they did a great job at that. But there's nothing like a New York City ticker tape parade to show the citizens of the country, show an appreciation for these men.
This is Brannon House Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon House.
And good evening. Welcome to the broadcast on this March 10th, 2026. I'm going to be joined by Matt Tardio tonight and by Patrick Wood. Do you know they got human brain cells now? Human brain cells. They're training to play a video game. Here it is. Human brain